What makes a great air warfare movie? Is it the scale, the tension, or the feeling that every takeoff might be the last? Some films chase spectacle, others chase truth. The best ones do something rarer. They put you in the cockpit, make you feel the weight of every decision, and never let you forget what's at stake. Halfway through this list, one film quietly rewrites what courage looks like from the sky. And the number one choice may surprise you. Number 10, Red Tails 2012. At first glance, Red Tails looks like it wants to be loud, fast cuts, big moments, high energy flying. And yes, it leans into style, but underneath that polish is a sincere attempt to spotlight a story that cinema ignored for far too long. This film follows the Tuskegee Airmen, a group of African-American pilots who had to prove themselves twice, once in the air and once on the ground. The movie does not spend much time on quiet character depth, and that's its biggest weakness. But where it absolutely shines is in the air. The flying sequences are some of the most dynamic ever put on screen for a Second World War setting. You can feel speed, distance, and chaos without losing clarity. That alone places it above many older films that rely heavily on reused footage or static angles. George Lucas helped guide the project, and it shows in the way motion and scale are handled. Historians have pointed out moments that stretch reality, but the spirit of the pilots comes through loud and clear. The pride, the pressure, the determination, all of it lands. Red Tails may not be subtle, but it is confident. And for viewers who want aerial action that feels alive and accessible, it earns its place on this list. Number 9, The Flying Leathernecks. 1951. This is one of those films that feels like a time capsule. You don't just watch it, you study it. The Flying Leathernecks stars John Wayne as a tough squadron leader during the Pacific Campaign. Everything about it is very much of its era. The dialogue is stiff, the tone is firm, and the message is clear from the opening minutes. Duty comes first. Most of the aerial scenes rely on existing footage, which means the flying never fully connects with the characters. But the film has value beyond spectacle. Wayne's character is loosely based on a real Marine pilot with an impressive record, and that grounding matters. Behind the scenes, the movie was shaped by studio pressure and politics of the time. That gives it a certain edge. You can feel the push to present leadership in a very specific way. Strong, unquestioned, unmoving. Today it plays differently. Some moments feel dated, others feel revealing. It shows how early Hollywood framed air combat and command. Less about fear, more about authority. The Flying Leathernecks is not here because it thrills. It's here because it explains where these movies started, and understanding that makes everything else on this list hit harder. Number 8, Memphis Belle, 1990. Memphis Belle wants you to feel pressure. From the opening scenes, the message is simple. One more mission, one more flight, one last test. The story follows a bomber crew nearing the end of their tour. They are tired, they are sharp, and they know the odds do not care how close they are to going home. That tension drives the film forward, especially once the planes leave the ground. When Memphis Belle focuses on the crew working together in the air, it is excellent. The pacing tightens. The silence between radio calls matters. You understand how each person depends on the others, where the film struggles is on the ground. The personal drama sometimes feels forced, like the script is trying too hard to remind you what is at stake. Still, when another aircraft goes down during formation flying, the reaction inside the plane feels real, quiet, heavy, unspoken. The movie was inspired by an earlier documentary, and that influence shows in the air sequences. They are clear, tense, and respectful of the reality these crews faced. Memphis Belle is not perfect, but it captures something essential. That moment when skill meets uncertainty and all you can do is keep going. Number 7. The Malta Story. 1953. This is a film about endurance, not glory, not big speeches, just survival. Set during the siege of Malta, the story focuses on a small island caught in constant air pressure. Supplies are limited, pilots are stretched thin. Every successful landing feels like a victory. Alec Guinness plays a reconnaissance pilot whose calm presence anchors the film. Jack Hawkins portrays the island's commander, juggling impossible choices with limited resources. The movie does not rush. It lets the situation breathe. The flying scenes are modest by modern standards, using models and careful editing. But the tension comes from repetition. Another alert, another scramble, another long wait. What makes the Malta Story work is its focus on routine. War here is not a single dramatic moment. It is days blending together, fatigue stacking quietly, decisions made with incomplete information. There is a human subplot involving local civilians, but the film wisely keeps its attention on the broader situation. The island itself becomes the main character. This movie does not shout, it holds its ground, and in doing so, it captures a side of air warfare that many films ignore. Number 6. Mosquito Squadron, 1969. Mosquito Squadron starts like a familiar mission movie. A damaged squadron, a difficult target, a leader pushed to the edge. But halfway through, it takes a turn that gives it weight. The story centers on a dangerous operation in Norway, involving low-level flying through narrow terrain. The aircraft skim mountains and water, leaving no room for error. Visually, it is one of the film's strongest elements. The twist arrives when a resistance member is captured, forcing a difficult choice that affects the entire mission. This shift adds urgency and consequence, pushing the story beyond routine planning. The effects show their age. Some shots repeat, others rely on miniatures. But the editing pulls everything together, especially during the final approach. Cliff Robertson brings a worn determination to the lead role. His character is not chasing honor, he is chasing completion. That difference matters. Mosquito Squadron may not reach classic status, but it understands pacing, tension, and purpose. And that makes it one of the stronger mid-era air warfare films ever made. Number 5. Midway, 2019. Midway is a film that almost trips over itself trying to do too much. Too many characters, too many story threads, too much heavy emotion spelled out instead of implied. But once you get past that turbulence, something impressive takes over. The final stretch of this movie is some of the most intense air warfare ever put on screen. The film carefully sets up the strategic chess match between both sides. You see plans forming, pressure building, and timing becoming everything. When the aircraft finally launch, the movie locks in, dive bombers descending, pilots searching for targets through smoke and glare, seconds stretching into lifetimes. What makes Midway stand out is clarity. You always understand where you are, who is flying, and what success or failure means in that moment. The scale feels massive, but never confusing. Yes, some dialogue lands flat. Yes, some characters feel thinner than they should. But when the flying begins, none of that matters. The film captures the sheer coordination and risk involved in large-scale air battles better than almost any modern entry. Midway earns this spot because it reminds us how decisive air power became. one correct moment, one precise strike, and history turns. Number 4, The Dam Busters, 1955. This is a movie about ideas, how they start small, how they get ignored, and how persistence can reshape the course of a war. The Dam Busters follows the development of an unusual plan to strike critical infrastructure using a completely new approach. The film takes its time, walking you through trial and error, skepticism, and frustration. Nothing comes easily. What makes this movie special is patience. It does not rush to action. It lets you sit with the process, the failed tests, the quiet determination, the tension between innovation and tradition. When the mission finally happens, it feels earned. The flying sequences are calm but focused. Low altitude approaches, tight margins, no room for improvisation. By modern standards, the effects are restrained, but the storytelling carries the weight. You understand what went into every decision before the planes ever leave the ground. The Dam Busters is influential for a reason. It shaped how mission-based war films were told for decades. Not flashy, not loud, just confident and deliberate. Number 3, Command Decision, 1948. This film barely shows combat, and that's exactly why it matters. Command Decision is about leadership under pressure. Not the kind that makes speeches, the kind that reads reports, counts losses, and still signs the next order. Clark Gable plays a general overseeing daylight bombing operations. The missions are costly, the losses are constant, and every choice carries consequences that ripple outward. Most of the film unfolds in briefing rooms and offices, arguments between commanders, political pressure from above, moral strain from below. It feels closer to a stage play than a typical war movie, but the dialogue is sharp and purposeful. What sets this film apart is honesty. There are no easy answers, no clear victories, just responsibility. The movie asks a hard question. How much can you ask people to give before the cost becomes too high? And who decides that line? Command Decision faded from popular memory, but it remains one of the most thoughtful air warfare films ever made. It respects intelligence, and it trusts the audience to engage with it. Number 2, 12 O'Clock High, 1949. Most air warfare movies focus on skill. This one focuses on strain. 12 O'Clock High follows a bomber group suffering heavy losses. Morale is low, discipline is slipping, and something has to change. Gregory Peck steps in as the new commander, determined to restore order and effectiveness. What makes this film powerful is restraint. Leadership here is not loud. It is firm, controlled, sometimes uncomfortable. The flying sequences are tense without being flashy. Long formations, sudden damage, the quiet shock of not seeing another plane return. But the real focus is mental endurance, the wear that builds mission after mission, the pressure of knowing that every decision affects lives. This film is still used in leadership training for a reason. It understands that command is not about popularity. It is about clarity under stress. 12 O'Clock High does not glorify air warfare. It explains it. And that clarity earns it the number 2 position. Number 1, The Battle of Britain, 1969. This is the benchmark. Everything else measures itself against this. The Battle of Britain does something no other air warfare film fully matches. It puts real aircraft in the sky and lets them tell the story. No shortcuts, no visual tricks to hide mistakes. What you see is what actually flew. The film covers the critical months when control of the air meant survival, German squadrons pushing forward, British pilots scrambling again and again, often with barely enough time to rest. Strategy meetings cut directly into airborne chaos, showing how decisions made on the ground play out at altitude. What makes this film special is scale with discipline. Dozens of aircraft move in formation. Dogfights unfold naturally, not choreographed for drama, but driven by position and timing. You feel distance. You feel fuel limits. You feel how quickly things can turn. The movie does not rush emotion. It lets small moments carry weight. A pilot missing from roll call. A quiet look before takeoff. A damaged plane limping home. Yes, it comes from an earlier era of filmmaking. It is cleaner, less graphic. But that restraint gives it dignity. This is not just a great air warfare movie. It is the definitive one. So, what really makes these films endure? It's not just the aircraft or the scale. It's the feeling that every flight mattered, that every decision carried weight long before engines ever started. From quiet command rooms to crowded skies, these movies remind us that air warfare was as much about pressure as courage. Now it's your turn. Which one still holds up for you, and which deserves another look? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe, and keep flying through film history with us.